Welcome to the Funnel Reboot Podcast with your host, Glenn Schmeltzley. Let's get into today's show.
For any professional, life often presents unexpected challenges that test our resilience. The Ottawa-based marketer we'll hear from today has had a very extraordinary number of challenges. Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast for analytically minded marketers. For those born with congenital heart defects, like Danny Covey's, surgery isn't an if, it's not even a when, it's a how many. Without undergoing them, that person has no hope of making it through adolescence into adulthood. And Danny has had 8 of these life-threatening operations. But throughout all that, he's displayed unwavering courage. His emotional and physical scars have shaped him. They have also given him insights that he shares in his book, Scar Tissue, which came out in 2023. And whether your difficult situations have come on the operating table or in the workplace, you'll appreciate the unique perspective that Danny brings. Let's get ready to reevaluate our perception of weaknesses and why they might actually be strengths with Danny Covey.
Danny Covey, welcome to Funnel Reboot.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be here.
I'm really glad to have you, and we're going to be talking about a book. What is the name of the book, Danny?
The name of my book is Scar Tissue.
So we've had a number of people who write books on. We've had a number of people who are writing marketing books on. What we're having here is a marketer who has written a book because, and I think you need to let people know right up front, what kind of a book is that?
So this book is what I call my open heart journey. I've had 8 heart surgeries. 4 of those have been open heart operations. I've nearly died on the operating table 3 times. And despite this, despite my doctor's best wishes and concerns, I decided to get a black belt in martial arts.
Wow. Okay. And have other aspects of your life, have obviously an occupation, have a family, the whole 9 yards. We'll get to that. Let's begin though at the beginning. You were born out in Western Canada, if I'm right.
That's right.
Let's kind of by decades, maybe say the 70s.
That's right. I was a child of the 70s. 1976 was my year. I was born during a dust storm.
Not everybody can say that. And your parents were elated to have you. They'd already had, I want to say, 3 other. Sadly, the eldest girl that they had did not live to adulthood, but you had 2 older brothers.
That's right. Okay.
And then there's you, and things seem to be going along fine until about 10 months of age. What happened to you when you were 10 months old?
So at 10 months old, I started choking, and my parents rushed me to the hospital. I stopped breathing, and the doctors kind of attributed that to I must have choked on an orange peel or something I was eating for lunch. They believed that until these choking episodes where I would choke, stop breathing, go unconscious, not just turn gray, but turn black. And that happened time after time after time after time. And so my parents took me to different doctors, to different cardiologists. The 11th doctor listened to my heart and said, there's something wrong with his heart. He needs to be at Sick Kids Hospital.
Okay. And so despite the fact that you had such violent reactions, it seemed that the initial cardiologists were, I guess, trying to pigeonhole you into something, and it didn't seem to wash. So if I'm right, though, how it came that Sick Kids entered the picture was there was a cardiologist from, and for our audience, Sick Kids, one of the preeminent hospitals located in the largest city in Canada, Toronto. This person was, I want to say, visiting
That's right.
Saskatchewan, and he was, I think, in Regina, or you were in Saskatchewan, one or the other, a couple hours away from each other, and listened and said, I got to get this kid into the clinic where I can do some measurements and instrumentation.
That's exactly right. My parents went to doctor after doctor. This guy put a stethoscope on, put it on my chest, and within a few seconds, he knew exactly what was wrong.
So there's knowing that diagnosis. What they said was wrong, I think, is you had stenosis, but of two different types in different parts of your heart.
Yeah.
Okay, so unpack that, please.
So they had determined I had supramitral stenosis, which is a leaky mitral, and I had subaortic stenosis, where my aortic valve was constricting and the blood flow was not getting through properly.
Okay. In people way, way older than you, this might exhibit the same way as congestive heart failure. No?
That's right. That's
correct. So that shortness of breath, just lethargy, and but it's just as problematic. And I think the biggest problem that I think as parents, you would be too young for this, but the heartbreaking fact would be, okay, fine, you have a diagnosis, but you were somewhere like 14 to 18 months at that point. 14 and 18 months old children are not supposed to get heart surgery because they're unlikely to survive the trauma of the surgery.
That's right.
Well, what do you do?
Yeah, my parents described it this way. Their world was completely turned upside down. And the surgery that would correct my problems was highly experimental at the time.
Were there people who said you should wait and see if you could get a few years older and get there? Was that even an option?
At the time, they didn't believe that was an option. I was passing out, losing consciousness, not breathing. So the surgery was emergency. In fact, I was flown across the country from Saskatchewan to Ontario. My parents were met at the airport with an ambulance that took me directly to the hospital. And I think within 2 or 3 days, I was having open heart surgery, which was the percentage that they gave me to live was not even 20%.
Right.
Yeah.
There are people who go through challenges in life who it doesn't happen to them until they're old enough to comprehend it and maybe have a chance to build the resilience for it. You were thrown in where you have had no experience other than life-threatening challenges. And I don't know if I can go anywhere with that. I'm just making a note of it because we're going to get into other parts of your challenge that a lot more of us experience. But yeah, you have to accept that you're kind of unique in the fact that it's no other way of getting through life than to have these kind of challenges. And I suppose maybe one area I can draw out is mortality. So most of us are blissfully unaware of our mortality until we choose to think about it.
Right.
Would you say, and I know you go into great detail in the book, pre-op, post-op, periods of time in between operations. It's very hard for you to answer, but do you think you had a more common association with thoughts of mortality than the average person?
Absolutely. And to me, growing up with surgeries and they were serious, they were very serious. So at multiple ages in my life, I was confronted by the fact you're 8 years old, you're sitting on an operating table, you could be dead in a matter of moments. You're 13, you're 14, and then again at 40. And so each of those times you're facing death to the degree that you understand it at that age. And so for me, it was, I wouldn't say it was normal, but this was the pattern.
Right.
That, okay, I'm going in for surgery. It's going to be a big one. This could be serious. How do I feel about death? And it was, I wouldn't say it was common, but again, those were the thoughts that were always going through my mind.
Yeah.
And I liken it to a dark cloud being over me over those many years.
Yeah. And I think that's great for me and others who read it or listen, that you can associate it with something like weather systems where we all, when those dark storm clouds are massing, we're going to take shelter. We're going to do what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose in all of us, we have that hope that at some point the clouds will part, the skies will clear, the sun will come out again.
That's right. And for me, between 1985 and 1990, I had 5 heart surgeries in 5 years. So it was a lot. And every surgery, the hope was there'd be rays of sun through the clouds. Ultimately, during that time, it led to, okay, we've bought you some time, but there's going to be another one.
Yeah. So let's talk about that because, again, that's that notion of none of us have infinite time, but you were literally in situations where a trade-off. So I'm thinking of when they said to you, okay, we can give you a mechanical valve, right? Or there's this kind of procedure. And they're looking at you developing over time, and they're trying to think of not a one-time ultimate fix, but of a mitra fix.
Right.
Even things like telling yourself, okay, they're going to put a mechanical valve in me at some point, but at another time, they may come to me and say, we have to take it out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another factor that I got to bring up here because it's in the title of the story and title of the book is our bodies do not react the same way in our 4th, 5th, or later surgery as they did the first because of scar tissue. So tell us about that.
So when I'd written my book, I was looking for a good title. And when I read an interesting fun fact about scar tissue, I knew I had my title. And scar tissue, it is formed, it's actually stronger than normal skin cells or normal skin tissue. It doesn't have blood vessels, it doesn't have sweat glands. So even though it's marred, it actually heals stronger than human skin. And when I read that, I thought, there's my title, because every surgery I've had, a significant amount of time was spent scraping out scar tissue from the previous surgery. And more than just physical scars that I have on me, I've treated scar tissue like an attitude. It's a mindset. I'm going through a difficult thing. I have this open wound. That open wound will never heal until it scars over. And scar tissue is a wound that's been healed. And so when I look at things, situations in life, whether they're physical or emotional, if I keep picking at that wound, it will never heal. If I choose to change my attitude and embrace it and go through the steps to recover, now I've got scar tissue. Now I'm healed.
Yeah, so many lessons from that. I can see it applying to us getting along with our siblings as we grow up. I can see it becoming important as we're, let's say, moving out, going away, you went away to college, the decision of which career path we're going to go into, and then the first job, maybe the second job, maybe the job that we take because we're not able to move into our chosen field right then, and we just need something for the interim. That, to me, has some very strong parallels with scar tissue as we go. So, yeah, maybe take us through a little bit of the pause that we had when you were finishing college, starting in your work life, starting along the path of having a life partner. What would you say were some of the main lessons that you were getting at that stage?
That time, so I would say graduating high school, going into college, getting married, for me, that represented the first time in my life where life was quote unquote normal. And all those dark clouds that I talked about were in the past. And now I had the opportunity. What do I want to do? What can I do? And
so if we can liken it back to, and maybe people are old enough to remember, there was that proverbial story of the boy in the plastic bubble.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of felt that way. And by necessity, you had to be treated that way when you were young. But as you say, when you're kind of getting into your 20s, it's like, no, if somebody hadn't known Danny from that era and he just walks into a job interview at this stage, nobody would be the wiser.
Yeah. I went from the boy who had heart problems to the man who used to have problems as a kid. And that time represented really for me the first time, what do I want to do? I felt this tremendous survivor's guilt, or I felt I owed medicine to give back in some way. But I clearly was not gifted in those areas. I was very keen to do creative things, but I didn't have it zeroed in as to exactly what I wanted to do. I loved drawing as a kid. I loved graphic design and later marketing and video, anything that was creative. I loved that, but I was like a rudderless ship. I didn't know which way to go.
Right. Okay. And as it came, like as you leaned into those areas, maybe not even having a specific destination in mind, you found yourself, you had a sibling who was getting into their own healthcare business, and you found that you could help them maybe find ways of producing stuff that developed their clientele and a few other things. Tell us a bit about how you tumbled your way into marketing. And I'll use that word because that's exactly how I did it.
Yeah. So I had worked with a very small print management company, 9 employees. I did everything. I did graphic design. I did quote unquote marketing. I even dabbled in some sales calls. When I worked with my brother, I had actually gone to an event where he was doing a triathlon, and I took photos. And on the way back, he said, I'm looking for somebody that could help me with my business, and I need help with community outreach and public education and just informing patients and like flyers and website. And as he was talking, I thought, I could do all that. And then the car got very quiet.
Right.
And both of us were thinking. And the challenge with anybody that's worked in a family business, it has its ups and downs. And so I was put into an area in healthcare and chiropractic, completely outside of what I knew, but it stretched me in completely different ways. It was a learning process because sometimes when I didn't agree with the boss, I treated him very much like a brother in front of the other employees. And so I had to adapt, and same for him. It was not just his younger brother who was giving him grief, but it was an employee. And so it really challenged that dynamic for some time.
Yeah, you cross a bunch of wires there, and near the top of them is that birth order of older to younger, which I always find hilarious because it doesn't matter how old we are. You can still have somebody who's a year or two older pull rank on you like they did when you were all sitting in the back seat of the Wally-mobile. There's a lot of good lessons, and you highlight some of those in the book. You were given the opportunity, though, in that job, which I think led to other points in your career of taking risks.
Yes.
And one of the things that you say very clearly in the book is that everything that you decide to do has some margin of risk to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're not doing something that has any risk to it, you're probably not doing anything.
Right.
And changes don't happen in the world by playing it safe. On the other side, taking a risk is a way to change the world.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that, it's the inescapable truth.
Yeah. And I think what I learned in my personal life with going through surgery 100% applied to marketing as well. Meaning, when I was younger, I wanted to do martial arts, but I physically couldn't do it. So when I started, I would literally just stand in front of a mirror as a little kid and punch, because that was all I could do. It was a step towards that goal or that dream. And with marketing, with this position, especially with my brother, it was an area where I would be stretched, where I wasn't comfortable, but I knew the skills that I would learn, how to interact with people and organize large events and a lot of moving pieces. I knew it would challenge me, but be something that would serve me very well. I just had to be willing to risk and at times look like an idiot because I didn't know what I was doing, but you learn what you're doing.
Right. And to kind of be out in the open, I guess, having, it obvious when you were hitting your physical limits. A person, let's say, running a martial arts studio would see, okay, Danny is giving me all he has. And I suppose we could parallel that to your brother going, okay, I have asked him to do something that he's not familiar with, but I could tell I'm seeing him break a sweat.
Yeah.
But I know that he is absolutely giving me all that he has. And you're no longer working with your brother still, obviously on good terms with him. But for that juncture, it gave both of you something, right? He got something out of it. You got something out of it. And I think that's the point, is kind of like we were talking about, like, okay, this surgery will get you from here to there. Your different jobs in your career need to be looked at as like segments in a journey.
Yeah.
And each one of them, we would like to think that they all go for very long periods of time. But if they don't, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because they'll give us something for the time we do have.
Yeah. And I would just add, I'm glad you mentioned it. My brother and I do get along, and it was a positive experience. We had some bumps here and there. Every position that I did was a step in the right direction to where I ultimately wanted to go. But they also taught me things I didn't know, that I could not have seen ahead of time, but they've challenged me to grow. So working for him, on paper, it looked ridiculous. You're in marketing. Why would you go work for a chiropractor? But everything from, he organized a radio show with other doctors, creating trade show graphics and helping them with their show. It just presented this great opportunity to really try something new and different.
Sweet. Keeping on marketing stuff, you at some point were sitting in an interview at a company that made specialized manufactured goods and security devices, all to do with the medical industry. I would say on paper, you might have seemed like a bit of a long shot for what they were seeking, which, I think they probably would have been thinking ahead, going, okay, we want a director of, or a VP of marketing, or CMO or something. But I think you were able to explain how this is something that you could do. Tell us about that.
So I would say, in the broad scheme of marketing, I'm not the tip of the spear. I'm very much the man in the trenches, rolling up his sleeves and getting to work. So I had done some freelance graphic design work for one of the salesmen. And he asked me, would you ever come in and interview? And I didn't really take it seriously. I just said, sure, I'll come in. And so I went into that interview. I wasn't nervous. I didn't feel like I had any skin in the game or anything. So I thought, why not? And I think anytime you have an opportunity to interview, do it, because it's polishing your skills. So we talked very briefly, and they had this list, and they said, just look at this list. And they slid it over to me. And I kind of looked at it, and there were maybe 30 or 40 items on there. And I looked at that list and I thought, yeah, I could do all of this. And I think I could do it well. And so I remember just looking at it and I said, yeah, I can do this. And that moment in that interview is when I really actually thought, oh, this could actually be an opportunity. And so I've been there since. And it has been a great opportunity. And it's been a really interesting learning curve, how to market something very differently from a chiropractic office or from a design firm.
Yeah. And that it may just be the amalgamation of all of those little problems that you know how to solve that goes to making you a marketer.
Yeah. And this is why I say every position that I've done, there's been unique challenges, but there's also been a tremendous amount of overlapping elements that I knew I could fulfill these. And this position was interesting because I wasn't advertising to Joe Public. The advertising that was done and the marketing that we were doing and creating was to engineers in other medical companies who were hitting production challenges. And so it took me probably several months to the light bulb went on. I'm like, we need to market to engineers. And they're frustrated because they can't get their product on the line. Well, how can we present ourselves or position ourselves as a solution to their problem, become a partner with them, and be part of their process?
Yeah, but it requires some thought experimentation and definitely some leaps of logic, because these are not people that you would just walk up and come across on the street.
No.
And there's not that many of them. So you really have to put yourself in their shoes. As you said, it takes time. But I think another thing that takes is a willingness to go on incomplete information.
Yes.
And that's another thing that I think we get very clear from your story is you had been around some of the most trained specialists in the world. And for your medical condition, you were often told, we don't know. Will this work? We don't know. How long will this give me? We don't know.
That's right.
What are my chances? We don't know. I can't help but notice that if you're brushing up against those people and you choose to still be optimistic, meaning you don't go down the route of how come they don't know? If you instead take away the reality that probability is a part of our inverse,
Right.
and that the unknown is always there, you can port that into your work and say, that's okay. I'm not going to be troubled by the fact that I don't know who these engineers are or exactly what they need. I'll figure that out.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that because that's a really good point. I was told you've got this serious heart condition. Don't strain your heart. Well, martial arts strains your heart. I joke, I'm the hardest working person in a dojo because your heart's going at 120, mine's going at 140. But what I was told by my cardiologists is that because I've challenged my heart safely over time, it's ultimately made my heart stronger than if I had just taken their advice and done nothing. So I'm not advocating don't listen to your doctor. I'm just advocating safely do what you are able to do. And there was an instance where we were trying to market a video and get client testimonials. The problem was we had developed proprietary information and none of the customers wanted to reveal that they worked with us or what we did. And I remember talking to my director at the time and I just said, we can't say anything. And he's like, I know. I said, how do we advertise if we can't say anything? And then it hit me. That's how you advertise. So I completely changed a marketing video that we put out. Instead of saying all the things that we did, we said, we can't tell you about the processes that we're developing. We can't tell you about the healthcare professionals leading the industry. We can't tell you who they are. We can't tell you about this exciting project that we're working on. And guess what? That's exactly how our clients like it. So I ended up marketing the fact that we couldn't talk as the main selling feature for, hey, if you're working on something and you don't want it shared and it's proprietary, come talk to us, start a conversation.
The area within marketing known as business to consumer, B2B to C for short. There's no better way of doing B2B to C marketing than the way you just said, because that middle B, those businesses that are selling to consumers, but they want to buy what you have that gives them that secret sauce that ends up in the final consumer product. They absolutely don't want others to know where they got it from, but you can use a ploy like that to let them know, yeah, you get it from us.
Yep.
That's amazing. We're going to jump forward to you're married, you've got 3 kids, and you are coming to this point in time where you are told that you have to have surgery again. And yet you are also in the throes of your career. You're trying to also work your way up through martial arts. And you're also now, like you said, that adult, not quite the adult who used to have heart problems, the adult who is now dealing with maybe the culmination of previous surgeries. And this, I believe, had to do with replacing the valve.
Yeah. So what had actually happened is the valve was working great.
Okay.
The aortic arch had drastically enlarged. And what they were proposing, they said, if you don't do anything, your arch will rupture. You'll have an aneurysm.
Got it.
So the surgery that they were proposing was, we're going to replace the arch and the valve. Since you've had that valve almost 30 some years, we're going to give you one solid, beautiful new piece. And that sounded pretty good to me.
Yes. But going into a potentially life-altering operation with 3 kids, with the whole shoot match, as most of us have at that age. The house still has to run, routines still have to be followed, kids have things to do. Everybody's got places and things, but your life has to take this drastic, abrupt halt while this happens. At this point in the book, you make a distinction between how you were raised and how you would handle this surgery, looking at it yourself. Your father was a pastor. Faith had always been a very strong part of your family, to the point where neighbors and other physicians and nurses were like, wow, what resilience is shown by them. But this was a time where you had to write notes to your spouse and kids and leave them with things that, in case they were needed, these would be the last words that you would have given them. But you talk in that point specifically about how your faith got you through. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah. When you're sick, your world gets very small. So it becomes about me in that moment. And surprisingly, work was not important. Other things, acquaintances, social events were not important. And I think for all of us, you talk about matters of faith, whatever your beliefs are, you are born into a family that believes certain things. And at some point, as you become an adult, you have to say, are these beliefs mine, or are they just what I grew up with? And for me, every time I was laying on an operating table, knowing that within a few minutes I could be dead, I asked myself, what do I believe? I remember asking that at 8 years old, at 13, at 14, and then again at 40. And my thinking is, it's the same process, but my answers are very different, because now I'm understanding the concept of faith and death at an adult level. Just like I would explain it this way: 2 + 2 is math to a 5-year-old. Advanced calculus is also math.
Yeah.
It's math, but your understanding is very different. So for me, I acted as if there was a purpose to my suffering. And I believed, number one, there is a God, and I believed that God had a purpose for me going through these hard surgeries, if for nothing else than to be an example to somebody else. And I kind of played that through in my mind. If I acted like there's no reason for anything, it's just random. Nihilism. Yeah. What kind of a husband would I be? What kind of an example would I be to my kids? What kind of an employee would I be if none of it mattered? And we don't act like it doesn't matter. We act like it does matter. And at 40, writing notes to my kids, I felt they need to know what their dad thinks of them if in 10 years he's not here, or if in 2 weeks he's not here.
Right.
Because a parent matters, a father matters, that example matters. So there is a reason for it. And that's really what I'd fixated on. When I had that surgery, I felt like I've got homework. I need to write notes.
Yeah.
I felt even things like I need to clean the house, because what if I'm not there to do this in 2 weeks? So it sounds horrible, but for me, it was comforting. It's like I can focus on these things to do, and it's also going to be practically helpful to my family.
Wow. It provides clarity. And I mean, it's very important that, having as an adult decided that God was going to be an active participant in your journey through this. One thing that definitely vanished was worrying. You say the line in the book, worry doesn't take away tomorrow's troubles. It takes away today's peace.
Right.
So while it would be fine for somebody to worry, I think when we get to the place where the stakes are as high as they were for you, you sort of say, but wait a minute, this is impinging on my life, like in the 2 weeks that I have now. So what on earth am I doing that for? That doesn't make sense.
Well, there's a comforting aspect to this as well. I've had 8 surgeries. There's something very familiar about that, where I know if there was ever a 9th, I kind of know the steps involved. I know what to expect, and that's familial. And the other thing with each of my surgeries, I've had time to prepare. Where mentally the surgery date is set, maybe it's 2 months out. So during those 2 months, I'm wrestling with it mentally and sorting through it. Just like when you have kids, you've got 9 months to get used to the idea. It's not just you come home from work and surprise. So that's actually been a comfort to me is I've got time to grapple with this.
And it must be said, and I don't want to dramatize the 8th one, but that preparation that you did turned out to be very important.
Yeah.
Because as you got on the table and as they began, the aneurysm that people had been dreading, that the doctor had been concerned about, all of a sudden appeared. You ruptured, right?
Yeah. And they still don't know if I had ruptured minutes before, just as the surgery was happening. Glenn, I should not be sitting here talking to you. My surgeon, that surgery became a mad dash to save my life. I went 9 minutes with no blood or no oxygen. And spoiler alert, I made it. But the other hospital staff were calling him the miracle worker because it was that touch and go. I really should not be here.
So however one chooses to interpret whether miracles were done through him or by him.
I think it's a yes. It's both.
It's a yes. It's a yes on any level you want to see it. And I think that it drives home the fact that these moments in life where we're tested, they are the only thing that matters at that moment. So to kind of jump forward to your martial arts for a second here, you not only wanted to get through this surgery, you also wanted to get your black belt. Well,
I remember as a kid from a hospital bed watching Jackie Chan and being completely blown away. And then second to that, I'll never do that. When I had my valve replaced when I was 14, that's when for me, my heart problems became something that was behind me. And suddenly things like running, lifting weights, or playing sports, I could start doing those. And for some reason, doing that impossible thing seemed like the logical step for me to do. My doctors were not for it. My parents were not for it. My surgeons and cardiologists, certainly not. The reluctance agreement came with a caveat. You can train, but you're not doing competitions where you're getting full-blown hits to the chest and things like that. So
I can see why.
Yeah. So for me, I was just happy to show up and do the training.
Yes.
And as I got closer to that black belt exam, I honestly didn't know, do I have the cardio? Do I have the endurance? Is my heart strong enough to take it? I didn't know, but I wanted to try. And I would rather, tap out and say, I can't go on, than just to always wonder, maybe I could have done it.
Right.
What if? And I'm a firm believer, ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, not permission. Take the steps, take the risk, because you're not guaranteed you'll have a chance 10 years from now or 5 years from now. We have windows of opportunities to do things in our jobs and life. So when there's an opportunity, if it scares you, that's an indication maybe you should consider doing it. And that's kind of been a guiding principle for me. If I get excited, oh yeah.
Yeah.
If I get scared, what if I can't do it? Why would you not step into something that might stretch you? Is there a good reason other than it's uncomfortable?
And the stretch is there. And the point I'll highlight is that your own limit was there too. But the biggest question was the black belt on the inside of the line. In other words, this side of the limit, or was the black belt on the other side where you could never do it?
That's exactly right. 100%.
And that your desperation to know was more important than just walking away and going, well, I could have.
Yeah.
And you did get it, right?
I did.
Now, I understand that after you finished your exam, we did find that your heart was doing like 140 years worth of that to actually achieve it. But at that point, it was a fait accompli.
Yes.
And heart rates can come down, thankfully.
hmm But I think with anything, like in work, you're working on a massive project and it's challenging you and stretching you. You do it. You get that black belt, you get that job, you finish that task, and you look back and say, wow, what else could I do if I dared to try?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, I think there's a human reluctance just to step out and try things, or we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
We hear that a lot in business. What if we tried something different? It may fail spectacularly, but you tried something nobody else did.
Yeah. And you end the book with that, just with kind of challenging the reader to go, if there's something that is gnawing at you that you haven't, and then you rightly say, it's not like you've got life-threatening heart issues holding you back. So yeah, you probably do have some struggles, but put it in perspective.
Yeah. And I think too, like I grew up with surgeries. And then when I wrote this book, I'd grown up thinking, well, this is just normal. And the writing process kind of showed me it's not normal. It was common. It was the habit, the pattern that I grew up with. And I think writing really helped me make sense of that. The reflection helped me make sense of that. And I think anybody going through a health issue, or you're going through a project that's challenging, write about it. I don't mean publish it, but just write down your thoughts and think through your process, because writing is thinking. And when you think, you're analyzing and you're problem solving. So I don't care if it's a black belt,
right,
or how do I manage AI, or how do I do this or that, whatever that is, think, write, process.
There's no better way to end than with that advice. That's an absolute gold. And if people want to get their hands on the book or find out more about where you write or share your thoughts, where can they go?
My website, it's dannycovey.com. That's DANNYCOVEY. I'm very easy to find on social media. And if you're interested in a copy of the book, it's available on my website. It's available on Amazon.com or .ca. And the audiobook is available everywhere audiobooks are sold.
Amazing. Thanks again for coming on, Dan.
Yes, this was awesome. Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks. I hope that you continue to look at what you're doing so that you can make it better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.